I'm in your walls. Anyways, hi guys, how's it going? You know, whenever I think of spooky stuff, I always think, oh, that's pretty scary for like 5 minutes, and then I'm not really scared. So, we're gonna talk about like spooky stuff, like scary stuff, creepy videos you see on the web or creepy video games and all that, and the horror genre in general. And to be honest, most of it doesn't really scare me anymore. Like back then when I was a kid, there was this one movie that had such a creepy cover, which I might show here, that I remember seeing in a Blockbuster, and I was like, oh, I was so scared and I didn't want to look at it. But now that I look at it, I was like, damn, bruh, that looks stupid. And I think it's alright in certain aspects, but most of the time now, I find it pretty stupid. The horror genre, like, I feel like has really just kind of like been, I don't know, somewhere in like a downhill trend. Most of the stuff that you see now isn't really that spooky. When it comes to stuff like analog horror, when it's well done, it's like, oh, that's pretty spooky. But you kind of like forget about it like a little bit later on. It's like, oh, yeah, that's pretty spooky. But I guess that's just like my personal gripe with them, like with horror, like in general nowadays. Because every time I look at something that's supposed to be scary, like for example, like stuff like the Backrooms, which at first glance, when we look at a video series made by, Kane Pixels, who created those outstanding Backroom videos, and then you compare it to the entire fandom, it's like, oh, like, to be honest, like, the original videos, I felt like did a really good job in terms of for like the Backrooms and everything and making them spooky. But like now when I look at the Backrooms as a whole now, it's like, I don't know, it's kind of cringy at this point. Because like it ended up becoming like kind of like an SCP Foundation website, pretty much. It's like you have all these different entities, all these different levels, and you have like all these different things like, oh, this entity can do this, and if you get touched, like, you're screwed. And the thing is that it's honestly just kind of dumb at this point. Like, I don't really see stuff like that as scary, because most of the time, like, I see it as kind of like SCP copy pasta, where it's like, oh, the Backrooms entity does the exact same thing that probably something else on the SCP wiki does. Now granted, SCP I would say is, in my opinion, a bit more scarier than the Backrooms. But SCP also has its like joke things as well, like its joke like SCP-420J, the greatest SCP around, or the Butt Ghost, my personal favorite actually. And those are funny. And I honestly feel like SCP does a way better job at like portraying how spooky some of the entities are and how silly some of them are. And the original game that released years ago is honestly still scary. I wouldn't even play it. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like, I'd probably crap my pants if I ever played the original SCP game. Like, I'm being 110% serious. You ain't gonna catch me playing that. I'm too scared of a statue appearing right in front of me and snapping my neck. Like, bro, I'm not risking getting jump scared like that. But whenever I look at the Backrooms and I play some of the Backroom games, I'm like, man, this is honestly kind of boring. And like, the atmosphere of the Backrooms isn't bad at all. Like, I'd say like the original concept that itself is pretty spooky, I would say. But like, bruh, it's not really that spooky anymore in my opinion. And whenever we look at other like horror mediums too, like not just like analog or anything like that, just like other horror genres like mascot horror and just like other type of just things like horror games and everything, I do feel like a lot of them are just kind of meh. Sometimes you still have like your like outliers, like maybe like the original Outlast game or whatever, like Amnesia, that were pretty spooky back in the day. But like now, majority of like the horror franchise is just kind of like oversaturated mascot horror. Like, bruh, Piggy from Roblox, yeah, that's not even that spooky. Poppy's Playtime, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. Garden of Banban, bro, that game's not even good. Like, the thing is like, every time I look at the horror genre now, it's like, what's so spooky about it? And I think that just like becomes with like age and everything, because obviously when it comes to stuff now, people just want to make money. I don't want to keep using Roblox as an example, because they just use child labor at that point. Like, the developers got to get that cash somehow, bro. Gotta hire them kid developers for 10 Robux an hour. But it obviously just all comes down to just like trying to advertise and just be like, oh, this game is very spooky, when you have games like Iron Lung that, hey, great atmosphere and actually really damn scary in like the aspects of their games. Like, oh, I'm in a submarine and I don't know what's out there, but it sure is scaring the hell out of me. But like now it's so boring, bro. It's just so damn boring. Like, it's hard to describe how boring some of these like things get, and like the more you look at it, it's like, it's not as scary anymore. And you know, like they're obviously like, if we go back, you know, back during, you know, like the early days of YouTube, like what was it, like channel 666 or whatever, and you look at like these older horror videos, it's like, oh, those are pretty spooky. But now when you look back at them, it's like, oh no, dude, these are kind of like stupid. And I think it's reached a point now where it's like, oh, nothing really interests me in the genre. Horror games, I do believe they do a good job in like portraying like the horror aspect and everything, making you feel actual fear. But now like most horror games are just like kind of just, I don't know, stupid. I was never really a big fan of the horror genre. Sometimes I would just like see, cause like sometimes like look into it because like sometimes there's like interesting stories and it's like, oh, pretty good. And it's like, now it's like, oh, there's like very few good things about it, in my opinion. And it's like, oh, it's just kind of like an oversaturated mess. You know, that's just my opinion though. And that's just what I personally think about the, you know, like the horror genre now. And yeah, that's really about it. Ooh, I'm a spooky ghost. I'm at the